there, my friends. Welcome to Create and Destroy. I'm your host, Dan Donnarumma. Shit, how's it going? I have a really exciting guest for you guys today, but before we get into that, first, gotta talk about Game of Thrones, because holy shit balls. So I gave my predictions a few weeks ago in regards to what I think would happen, who would be some deaths that we would see this season. And I don't want to spoil anything because just in case there are some of you that haven't seen the most recent episode that aired on Sunday, or if you're like some of those weirdos that wait until the entire season drops to then binge it all at once, I don't want to spoil or ruin anything for you. So I'm not going to delve into specifics, but I just want to say, holy fucking shit to season 8, episode 5. I absolutely love where D&D has taken us this far into the show. And now I know this season has been very controversial. There are some people that love what's been happening this season. There are some people that are not pleased with some of the decisions that D&D have made with the show. And by and large, I really like where the show has gone. I do think that there have been some pacing issues, specifically in episode 4, that really should have been broken down into 2 separate episodes. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. And I think season 7 and season 8 would have worked much better had D&D done 10 episodes for each season instead of, 6, I think, in season 6 or 7 in season 7, and then 6 episodes with this current and last season. So while I do think there have been some issues, by and large, I have really enjoyed what they've done so far with this season, and still an episode left to go. So when episode 5 of this season gets to it and we get right into the meat of what's happening and sort of the twist, so to speak, happens, I was sitting on my couch in complete disbelief and awe at what we were seeing. I was just completely stunned. To be honest, I think this is like the perfect ending for me. Again, I don't want to give any spoilers away, but for me, this is like almost as perfect as an ending as I could have asked for. And I cannot wait to see what happens in the finale. Season 8 has really been a wild fucking ride. And I think whether you are a fan of it or you're on the fence or you dislike it, at the bare minimum, some of the stuff that has happened this season has just been fucking nuts, man. It's been crazy. I think this is how George R.R. Martin is going to have the book series end as well. I do. He said it in previous interviews. He said it that this is where he envisions the story to go. So I have to think that D&D got this information right from George R.R. Martin. So yeah, guys, I think this is what's going to happen in the books, and I am all about it. I'm all in favor for it. Give it to me now, baby. One of the things that I love about this show is, and I'll forever love about this series, is that we get to see the dark side of humanity and we get to see the evils in humans, because yeah, we are a vile lot, and the show and the book series do a wonderful job at depicting that. So on that note, let's segue into today's guest. I think it's a good segue. So my guest today is Cameron Carlin. So really cool dude, really excited that I was able to sit down and speak with him. Cameron puts out music under the moniker of Wilshire Corridor, which is kind of like a metal, industrial, droney kind of musical project. He also performs with the Black Mare for their live sets, which is really cool. Earlier this year, he released The Fig and the Wasp, which is the debut release for Wilshire Corridor. And so Cameron and I, we talked about that release, and I explained this to Cameron that when I listened to The Fig and the Wasp, because of the album art, because of the lyrics in some of the songs, because of some of the song titles, I totally envision this to be an album depicting the downfall of humankind, the hubris of humankind and our utter demise, which Cameron says is not the case. But, you know, that's one of the things that I've always loved about music, is that you can listen to an album, you can listen to a song, and the atmosphere, the lyrics, all of that stuff can evoke in us certain feelings, certain thoughts, emotions. And I think Cameron does such a great job at creating this total atmosphere of fucking grim, bleak, everything is coming to an end sort of vibe with The Fig and the Wasp. And it makes it that much more enjoyable for me. Really is a solid release, man. Doors to Nowhere, which is the opening track on the album. Freaking love that song every time I listen to it. Yeah, gets me every goddamn time. So, enough of me nerding out about Game of Thrones and The Fig and the Wasp. Let's get right into it. Here's my conversation with Cameron Carlin. All right, Cameron, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. So I'm super excited to talk to you. I have been listening to your latest album with Wilshire Corridor a bunch lately. So super excited when you agreed to speak with me. And I got to thinking, because you do all these different projects, how the hell do you find time to work on all the stuff that you work on?
Well, last year, what was that, 2018? Yeah. I had quit my full-time job to go on tour with 2 different bands. So basically, all of my time was spent in these projects, playing shows at home, writing stuff at home, which freed up a lot of my time. And when I wasn't doing band stuff, I was working on this new project. And I think it was like around late summer. It all came together and I kind of found the time and the energy and the resources to complete it. And that became the record I released.
Were you nervous to quit your job, or were you like at the point where you were saying to yourself, fuck this, I'm out?
It was definitely a crossroads for me. I'd been there for a while, and everything where my heart was set kind of was pulling me to go and try and do the music thing full time. My job was also not stoked on me going on tour for 3 weeks in like the first month of the new year. So it's kind of a perfect storm in a way.
And then once you made that jump, what was going through your head? Were you anxious, or were you feeling a sense of relief? Like what type of emotions were you feeling when you finally did quit your job and now you're working full time as a musician?
Total horror, because I wasn't making money doing music stuff. I had just saved up enough to like, okay, I can give this 100% of my time, like 100% of my energy, but also feeling pretty liberated in a way, because I wasn't sitting at a desk anymore for 9-10 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So once you had quit your job and now like you're in charge, so to speak, of your time and your schedule, did you feel any sort of anxiety about not having that regimented schedule that you would with work?
Yeah. I mean, that's I guess that's the cost of, what people do when they're freelance or when they're a solo artist or something, is like, well, now it's all up to you. You got to be your best friend and your boss and your employee and kind of show up for yourself as best as you can, or else it all kind of falls through the cracks.
And how did you feel that translated into your creative output? Did you see a difference in the work that you were putting into your music once you did transition from working full-time to now being a full-time musician?
Yeah, I could focus on it in a way that I couldn't necessarily before. Meaning, like, now that I didn't have to be somewhere for 8, 9, 10 hours a day, unless it was like practice or a show or a writing session or something, I had this huge open amount of time to just do whatever I wanted. And that was, of course, work on my own stuff when I wasn't doing band stuff.
With what you're doing currently, are you still working full-time as a musician, or have you gone back into maybe working more of a traditional 9-to-5 type of job?
I'm working part-time pretty often. About as many hours as I can. And then, there are side jobs and odd jobs here or there, but no full-time desk job situation currently.
Does most of your free time at this point go towards you working on music or some of the projects that you're a part of?
I've honestly stepped back a little to kind of get a little perspective on what I want to do next. I'm experimenting with like new pieces of equipment, new kind of methods of writing, which doesn't actually lead to anything maybe that I'll want to release, but I'm in a bit of an experimentation phase right now until something kind of sticks.
Yeah, interesting. So what is there something that you think spurred this on, or is it just kind of maybe some of the things that you were doing weren't tickling your creative fancy, so to speak?
Yeah, I'd kind of had even with the band stuff and my solo stuff, there was kind of a formula to how I'd write, just as far as, you know, how I would start a song, how I would finish a song, like how I would incorporate this or that piece of equipment. And I did get kind of tired of it. I get bored really easily. Like, even with things I really like, it goes away just as soon as it arrives. So yeah, kind of where I'm at now is like, well, there's no wrong way to be doing this, and there's so many different approaches I could take to coming up with something I like or coming up with a new sound. And that's kind of what I've been doing lately. I've been, you know, digging through old 4-track recordings that I don't remember making, and it's like, oh, that's kind of rad. I could do something with that. And again, experimenting with some new gear that I bought and just seeing what works, seeing what sticks, but also learning how to use some of this stuff.
Interesting. So would you say that you're, with how you are and how your personality is, that you need to have maybe multiple projects or maybe need to be working on different things every so often?
Yeah, I feel like in order for me to not be bored, I need to be busy with a couple different ideas, a couple different like working environments. The catch to that is, like, I've also come to understand, unless you're giving one thing 100% and you're giving several things smaller percentages, the result isn't as good. There's something about having a really strong one-track mind, one idea, focused on one thing, that allows that to sort of, I guess, be the most rewarding project, but at the same time that can be really agonizing and really boring. And, you know, I want to jump between songs, I want to jump between projects, but at the end of the day, it's like, if you give one thing 100%, usually you get 100% out of it. If you give, you know, 4 things 25%, you get 25% out of those 4 things.
I'm just thinking about, I like Parks and Rec. I don't know if you're into that show, but there's an episode where Ron Swanson is basically talking about exactly what you're talking about. And his thing is, it's better to whole-ass one thing than to half-ass 2 things. And I think that's definitely true.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that.
When you're not working on music, what's one thing that you like to do that allows you to just kind of relax and recharge?
I like walking around the city. I like hanging out with my girlfriend. That's kind of it. If I'm not working or working on music, like, I got to be doing something that's good for my mental health. And usually that's not sitting at home on a computer and trying to get out of my car, you know, driving around the city as much as possible. I like being out on the pavement doing that.
Dude, it's funny. I literally was having this conversation with my wife, and that's why I put that question in here, because I am in 100% agreement with you. If I am not working on things that I want to work on, I feel like my mental health just totally like plummets.
Oh yeah.
So
totally.
I could totally relate to that, man. Now, I saw that you got to play recently with Mortiis, and you did a Wilshire Corridor set, and I think that's awesome. So what was that show like?
Really next level, man. That was like from I don't know if you've ever been to the Lodge Room.
No.
But that's an incredible venue. It's a bit of a new venue. I think they've been running for like a year, maybe a year and a half. But it's an old Masonic lodge, so it's incredibly ornate in design. It's all these original like wooden structures inside. You know, there's this huge pentagram on the ceiling.
That's awesome, man.
It feels like a very regal kind of ritual space. The sound's incredible. People like going there. I've never been to a show there that wasn't super well attended. And yeah, getting to open for Mortiis was, dude. It was wild.
Was he wearing a mask or anything?
Yeah, he had his prosthetics in action.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, bringing it back.
That sort of like, I guess, pageantry is awesome, man. I love when bands do that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it definitely created, I mean, he's done that forever. So like, mad respect. But getting to see that in that environment with that many people, on top of the fact that like, I never thought I'd get to see Mortiis play, and if I did, it certainly wouldn't be the older stuff, you know, it felt kind of like a once in a lifetime thing.
I'm sure, man. Like so when I saw that post on Instagram that you were going to be playing with him, I was just like, that's fucking awesome. And it made me think, you know, for you, when you get to play a show with any band that you're really into or bigger acts, and it's kind of like a what the fuck, how did this happen moment, like what's going through your head?
Oh shit, I'm doing something right. Oh man, I hope this doesn't suck. I hope I don't fuck up.
Oh, I'm sure, right? There's got to be those thoughts of like, oh my God, what if this all goes wrong?
Oh yeah.
So do you get anxious? Let's say with the Mortiis show, for instance, did you get anxious at all thinking about your set and your performance and how that would go?
I wasn't anxious until I actually got to the venue, and you know, after sound check, there was a line down the block, like, and around the corner, like before doors had opened, and I thought, oh, that's not what I expected. I knew tickets were selling, but like people are here early and ready to do this like an hour before the show starts. Oh fuck. Okay. Yeah, I think after seeing that, I was like, I need to go like hang out somewhere. Just the sight of that many people sometimes is kind of unnerving.
Oh, I'm sure, man.
Yeah, and like I've played shows that are at big venues and well attended, but I think maybe some of that has to do with the fact that this is not a band. It kind of all falls on me in a way, and that can be a bit nerve-wracking. Like I'm still new to doing it alone, essentially.
Oh my God, yeah, I could imagine, man. Like I have to imagine it's probably more nerve-wracking to play and perform solo than it is with a band, right? Because there's multiple people that the crowd is going to be paying attention to, as opposed to you playing solo. Everything is on you.
Right. It's like it's like getting into a fight or something. It's like, if you got three friends to back you up, like, yeah, let's fight. But if it's just you, like, maybe not.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, like you got your crew with you, you got your team, you got your, like, you got muscle that's not just you. So it kind of takes the pressure off, but not in this case.
What would you feel would be more pressure packed or like anxiety inducing for you? Let's say playing a show where you're the headliner and there's a crowd of thousands of people, or you're at a big show where you're opening for a bigger act. What do you think would be more nerve-wracking for you?
Damn, I don't know. I think being a headliner has got to suck. That's a lot of pressure. Opening for an artist that I respect and I know has pulled a lot of attendance might actually be more nerve-wracking, because not only are the people who are at the show, that may or may not know what you're doing, there to kind of like see what's up, like who's this person, what's happening, but you also don't want to fucking let down the person you're opening for. You don't want to be a bad opener.
Oh yeah, I'm sure, man.
Especially if it's a band that like you like, and in some cases like you've liked for a really long time, and you get this opportunity to like play a show with somebody you respect and have looked up to or whatever for however long, and yeah, you don't want to drop the ball. And I can see why. Yeah, I think that might be the worst of the two.
Oh God, I'm sure, dude. Aside from Mortiis, has there ever been another show that you've played with another group of bands or a band where you were like, holy shit, I can't believe I get to share the stage with this band or this act?
Yeah, two of the bands I was playing in over the last couple of years both got to open for Alcest on two different occasions. One was back in, 2015 maybe. And the most recent was this last fall. But I've liked Alcest since, 2007, 2006 maybe? Like early Alcest days. And that was a bit nerve-wracking too. The first time I played with them, I got asked to play guitar in Black Mare, I think 3 weeks before the show. And I'd been friends with Sarah and Black Mare for a while. I'd played shows with them, but I hadn't played in the band. So it was like, hey, can you learn all of these songs in 3 weeks and play this huge show with us. That was rough.
Dude, I was gonna say, like, what the fuck was going through your head at that point?
Yeah, because I hadn't played a show of that size, even in a venue of that size, like, ever in my life. So it was kind of like, oh, this will be exciting, but also paired with the fact that, like, wow, I can't fuck this up.
So you had been, up to that point, you had been playing in other bands though before this, right?
Right.
Wow. So, dude, yeah. So how did you learn the songs that you were going to be playing for that show in 3 weeks' time? That to me is like, holy shit.
Well, I got the sessions, I got the stems. I broke it down to, like, okay, this is what I need to do. Oh my God, what are these guitar tunings? Like, what are these time signatures? Like, just, I don't know if you've listened to Black Mare, but it's weird.
Yeah.
Maybe weird's not the right word, but it's definitely not traditional song structures.
Definitely not.
If I broke down the guitar tunings, it's like, whoa, okay. So I kind of just had to lock myself at home after work for, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks straight, and just nailed them. I just had to play them for hours and hours and hours on end until it clicked.
That to me is so impressive. Before I started growing out my hair, the barber that I would go to, he would tell me that whenever he would have to play shows, he would practice songs. The only way he would feel comfortable with playing a song live is if he could play it 20 times in a row without fucking it up. I was like, dude, that makes sense, man. I feel like that's a really good way to go about making sure you're not going to botch a song live.
Yeah, that's kind of my experience too. It's like, it can't feel good enough. It has to feel like I could do this with my eyes closed to, like, a click track and no other music.
Wow.
Which is kind of what it took. It was, yeah, I'd get home at, like, I don't know, 7 or 8 o'clock and basically just play the songs until midnight or 1 a.m. or whatever. Yeah, I just did that for 3 weeks and it worked out.
Damn, dude. You know, I'm a beginner level guitar player. So for me to hear you tell me that, I'm just like, holy fuck, that blows my mind, dude. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was a challenge for sure.
I saw that you got to play with Chasms recently for a set that they did, which... Yeah. Dude, they're fucking awesome. Their new album is so good. So how was that show?
It was fantastic. I've liked Chasms for a while. I love them all as people. I really love the new record. So when I got asked to do that, I was pretty excited. And also getting to open for Churches of all the bands was pretty cool. That is a band I never saw myself anywhere near. Whether it was like a show or even sonically, like that's another world I'm not really familiar with. But it was fun. You know, it was out in the desert, sold out, like Coachella sideshow or whatever. Not a single person in all black in sight. It was a very different experience. Yeah, I
can totally get down with Churches, man, and my wife is into them. So we saw them. It had to have been 2 or 3 years ago now, and it was in May. It was right around my birthday, and I'm thinking it was a venue that's outdoors, and in upstate New York, the weather in May is so hit or miss. So I'm thinking I'll be fine. It's gonna be nice out. It was freezing as fuck, but dude, they were really good live, man. They put on a really good show.
Yeah, they killed it. I guess I couldn't believe that they were such a production. I didn't know. Yeah, really. Like I'd heard what was it? It was like was it the Recover EP? Whatever came out in like 2012. I thought, like, oh, it's cool. It's like Never Ending Story, synth pop, you know, neo 80s thing that won't die, but it's good. And since then, I guess they've been on tour forever and pulling crowds all over the world, and yeah, it was wild.
When I saw them, they had these like multiple pillars of like LED lighting, I think it was. I don't even know how to describe them, but it was fucking awesome. Yeah, they were really cool.
Yeah, it's definitely a production. I remember showing up and there were 2 like gigantic tour buses there. I was like, holy shit, this band's like that? Wow. Okay, cool. Good for them.
So shit, man, let's dive into Wilshire Corridor, because I don't remember who it was. Someone that I follow posted that the album was coming out, and I wound up checking it out and being like, this is fucking awesome, man. This is so good. At what point had you started working on the songs for the album, The Fig and the Wasp? At what point was it that you started working on those songs that would become that album?
So most of that material started to emerge in 2017, but it wasn't until 2018 where I really sat down and decided I've got to finish this. Like, I can't keep giving this, 10% here, 10% there. It's like, I need to finish this. I need to sit down and fucking do it. Pulled some old material that I had, kind of had to sit with it for a bit. Do I like this? Is there something cohesive happening here? Because I didn't want to just throw songs I had written together. I wasn't trying to do, like a compilation. It was like, no, I'm making a record. I want this to make sense. So ultimately what I finished and what I wound up settling with became that record.
Interesting that you say that, because when I listened to that album, and I have no clue if this is what you were trying to convey, I feel like I'm listening to a story of like the demise of humankind and like the earth, like the earth crumbling. Is that at all what you were going for with the album?
Honestly, I have no idea. The only thing I'm really sure of about that record is sonically more so than lyrically. It's a reflection of my experience living where I live, as kind of, tired of a story as that is. Like that's the one thing about the record I can put down on paper, like it has something to do with living in Los Angeles.
Interesting. So would you say that the music, the lyrics have a negative connotation about where you live, or is it more of purging some of the shit that I deal with living in this city?
I actually don't think it's either of those. It's really the lyrics. The lyrics kind of wrote themselves. Like I'm still, mostly when I play, I'm still cracking the code of what exactly I was trying to say. I may have been trying to say nothing. I don't know. I'm not one for writing lyrics very much. I know that I like certain words and I like the way certain words sound with other words, but I don't think too much, thematically about what I'm writing down or what's getting recorded into a microphone.
Interesting. Dude, that's just one of the things I love about music so much. Like I said, when I listen to your album, when you take in the artwork, some of the titles of the songs, some of the lyrics, to me, I felt like I was listening to an album that is talking about humankind's hubris and how we're destroying the world.
I'm happy you're taking it like that. That works for me. I mean, yeah, it's sure, it could be that. It's also like totally not that, but as for what it is, yeah, there's really no one thing that it is. And I think that comes out just listening to it too. It's not this sound, it's not that sound. It's kind of a mess.
As I've gotten older, I tend to really gravitate and enjoy bands and albums that are a blending of different styles. And when I listen to Wilshire Corridor, I get metal, I get drone, I get all these different sounds that you are able to encapsulate with your music. Mm-hmm. And so when you were working on this, was that your goal, that you wanted to bring in these different genres to influence your music? Or is it just, it kind of happened and you just went with it?
It kind of happens. I've noticed if I try and write something, it has to be this one thing. That never works for me. Whatever's happening creatively or, even technically speaking, like, will come out as it may. And I think as far as like influences go, or maybe like what inspired the record musically, I don't listen to just one thing. I'm kind of all over the place, but it all comes back to a kind of a need for atmosphere, at least, a need for headspace, like a place to. I don't know if I want it to paint a picture. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it totally does, man. Because as I said, when I listen to The Fig and the Wasp, I think the album does a really good job of creating an atmosphere, and for me, that was thinking about fucking mankind's demise, dude.
Cool.
Because one of the things that I really enjoy about the album is it starts with punching you in the face with Doors to Nowhere, and then it sort of kind of settles in for a little bit, and you kind of have a reprieve, and then it gets right back into it.
Right.
So I think that's part of, for me, why I'm able to maybe think about things and say this is what I think maybe the album is trying to delve into thematically. And when you were structuring the album, did you intend to have the songs laid out in that way for that purpose, or is it just you like the order of how that sounded?
There was definitely a few days where I shuffled the tracks around and saw, okay, what sounds better going into this? Just simple track arrangement stuff. And I didn't want it to be so, I don't know, heavy song with vocals next, heavy song with vocals next. I wanted there to be some movement and breathing room, I guess a little variety.
Yeah, and I think you really did that so well with the album. Like I said, I love that you incorporate drone and metal and industrial, and it could be heavy at times, and that could also be kind of subdued, and I think it makes the album that much more impactful for me in that way.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, man. So I had no clue until we scheduled this interview and I started doing some research that Wilshire Corridor is like a place in LA. Never would have been able to guess that. So so that, I guess that makes sense when you're telling me that this is kind of the city of LA had a part to play, at least to some degree, with you making these songs. So yeah, what made you want to choose Wilshire Corridor as the name of this project?
Oh man, I knew this question was gonna come up one day. One of my jobs, well, several of my jobs, plus the nature of living where I live, involves being in a car a lot, like too much. Like there's no reason anybody should ever be in a car this much, but this is the path I've chosen. So I'm in the car a lot, and I find myself in a lot of neighborhoods and kind of areas and places like I don't spend time, places I've never spent time, places I could point to them on a map, but I don't know what they're called. So I have this experience of getting lost and kind of disoriented in a place that I've ultimately lived my whole life. And that's kind of a feeling that, like, once that feeling hits me sometimes, that's when ideas start happening, whether it's a string of words or it's an idea for a song, or it's an image that I'll try and convey musically. It's in those moments of kind of feeling really alienated, but still knowing exactly where I am and yet having no idea where I am. I find that really special. And a lot of that feeling is what led to the record. But to be specific about Wilshire Corridor, so if you look it up online, it's like a super expensive part of Beverly Hills.
Yeah, I saw like like luxury high rises and shit. I was just like, whoa, what is up with this?
Yeah. So I was driving around for secrecy's sake. I'm not going to disclose exactly where it is, but I was driving one day and I had this feeling that I often get, as I was just talking about. And I swear I had seen a sign, "Oh, you're entering Wilshire Corridor." And I thought, damn, that's got a good ring. I like that. Also, because that feeling hit the same time I saw the sign, it was like, oh, maybe there's something like magical happening right now. Like I should write this down in my phone. Like just make a note, Wilshire Corridor. Like, that sounds cool. And then it just kind of stuck. I thought it sounded cool, basically, and it kind of tied in with that feeling I was talking about. But I didn't realize until later that's not where I was. I don't know. I don't recall exactly where I was, what the name of that place was. But when I went some months later and I thought, do I have this right? Did I actually name it correctly? And I looked it up and I was like, nope, that was totally wrong. Oh, okay. Well, cool. Like, I like getting things right by getting them wrong first. So it stuck. I wasn't going to change it after that. And I guess that's kind of part of the story for the name anyway.
That's very interesting. I've never been to LA before, and I have friends that tell me mixed things. I have friends that say they love it, and some friends are like, that city sucks. So I'm curious from you, what's like one of your favorite things about living in LA?
I like the vastness of it. It's huge. I mean, I don't know how many miles across it is exactly. And then there's well, what is LA technically? And I suppose there's, you could look at a map and be like, that's what it is. But there's people that'll argue like, oh, that's LA County. That's not technically Los Angeles and yada, da, da, da. I think I've always had a love-hate relationship with it. I grew up here, so you kind of hate where you grow up. But every now and then I'm charmed back into loving it. That being said, I do feel, and I keep saying this, to people that I have this conversation with, it's like all this stuff I really, really like about it or did like, there's less of it. And all the stuff I really don't like and have problems with.
Interesting.
And it's just kind of like, I don't think it won't be the same city in 10 years.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like, there's no way. Like, I can't imagine how some of these neighborhoods, where friends of mine live, where people hang out, where we go to shows, etc. Like, I can't imagine what they're going to look like or how anybody will afford to live there.
Yeah, dude, I got to say, so like I went a couple summers ago, I went out to California. My wife and I spent some time in San Francisco, and then we went to a bunch of national parks around San Fran, and I absolutely fell in love with California. And so I started looking into potentially moving out there.
Yeah.
Dude, it blows me away. I live in New York State, but I live closer to the border of Canada than I do with New York City.
Right.
So it's relatively cheap where I live. And yeah, when I saw like how much it costs to live in San Francisco or even some of the other like smaller cities surrounding San Francisco, I was just like, holy fuck, dude, how do people do it?
Yeah. Not a clue. And San Francisco's, that's astronomically higher than what it is here. Like, I've got lots of friends here that had to leave the Bay Area because they're like, can't do it. Can't do this anymore. Like, can't live in San Francisco. Can't live in Oakland. I guess we'll go to Los Angeles, which is funny because it's still pretty fucking expensive.
Yeah.
All things considered. It's not San Francisco. It's not, Manhattan, but it's like, well, I think we've all got about 5 years until who knows what happens.
To go back to LA, right? How would you say that the city as a whole has had more of a positive effect on you as a musician, or would you say it's negative, or maybe a little bit of both?
I think if I look at the city as a kind of living, breathing entity and not necessarily as like a social climate, I think it's been positive. Again, back to what I was saying about kind of being in your car a lot here. I mean, that's not only because of the work I've done, but that's also part of living here. Like, if you don't have a car, you're fucked. Like, you're going to be in your car a lot. That's the deal. You move to Los Angeles, you're going to be in your car often, at least an hour a day. I guarantee it. But sometimes that experience, they're just moments I've had of clarity and kind of peace driving down a certain street or seeing the city from like a different angle I hadn't seen it as before, that have influenced a lot of my sense of atmosphere, influenced a lot of my sense of like space and like what I want my music to sound like. And also kind of like what kind of music I like.
So now to delve back into Wilshire Corridor.
Sure.
I love that the album opens with Doors to Nowhere. Mm-hmm. That song is so goddamn good, dude.
Thanks, man.
And I feel like just everything together makes that song so impactful. For you, I know you had mentioned that thematically wasn't really too much of a theme going on with the album, but that song specifically, was there something specific that you wrote that song about, or what would you say that song is about?
Kind of just a waking surrealist nightmare I was having whenever I wrote the lyrics. Very, very visual. I think I was trying to paint just a series of images I had in my head as best as I could, without being super literal either. Yeah, as far as for if it has any meaning, like, I don't know, maybe. not to me. Again, this goes back to what I was saying about that experience I have like around the city. It's like, it's just a feeling. It's not, it's even harder to put into words. I guess the fact that I even try and make sense of it musically is kind of insane, but that's what I know how to do.
And what made you want to open the album with that song?
I think honestly, it had the right kind of mid-tempo feel to it. I didn't think too much about that. I felt like everything else deserved a little time away from the initial impact. Okay, once you get through this song, or maybe like I don't even remember what the second track is, but I know it's a calmer one. I think by the time you get through those first two, it's like, you want to stay? You want to stay on the ride? Like, okay.
Yeah, as I was mentioning earlier, I really love that the album starts with Doors to Nowhere, and it kind of pulls back a little bit in terms of the intensity, and then it picks back up a little bit, and either on I think it's the third song or maybe at the end of the second song. I mean, I appreciate that, because like you said, I think it allows you to kind of take a breather and then pulls you right back in.
Right.
For me, right, like I said, when I listen to it, I totally get the vibe that I'm thinking about the world is fucked. What do you think about the current state of the world? Like when you think about the planet, what goes through your head?
We're fucked, man.
We're so fucked, dude.
We're arguably fucked, I think, as a whole, because we can't get out of our own way. And I think that's part of the human condition is, you know when to stop. You know when this thing you're doing isn't good for your long-term health, or, you know, the health of the people around you, the people in your life, people you love, strangers, whatever. Like, and yet people want to ride it out till the bitter end. I'm by no means above that either. Like that might sound negative, that might sound pessimistic, but there's also this idea that, you know, I think the reality of it is different. I think if you can get in touch with reality, and I think you can come to terms with like the facts of a situation, I think the better off you are. So if tomorrow, like, it was indisputable fact that, you know, civilization had 30 years left. You know, there's two things you could do in that situation. There's a couple, but if we break it down, it's like there's two things you could do. It's panic and woe and despair, etc. Or it's like that could be kind of liberating though too. I think that could be freeing in a way, like, hey, we got 30 years to kind of fuck around in a way.
Have a party, man.
Yeah, like you might. What do you do with the realization that like this was all for nothing? What do you do with the realization that like this isn't going anywhere? Like, we're not going out with a bang. We're not even going out. We're getting erased.
Yeah, dude. So like when I graduated from college almost a decade ago now, and I remember taking this course. It was like an environmental sociology course, and shitting my pants during that course because of all the I had to read multiple books talking about predictions on like water shortages, resource shortages, and how the predictions from these authors would be like, oh, this is going to be 20, 30, 40, 50 years into the future. And now we're like a decade from that point and seeing some of that shit starting to happen now. And just seeing how in America we are so slow to want to try to move
right
in a good direction, in a positive direction, and that we're one of the biggest fucking consumers of pretty much everything. Mm-hmm. Dude, this is one of the reasons why I don't want to have kids. I'm just like, I can't imagine what the world will be like 20 years from now. It's going to be an utter shit show, dude.
Yeah, it's going to be out of control. It's always interesting to me that like people's last kind of straw, like their limits as far as suffering go, constantly keeps getting pushed further and further away.
Yeah.
Arguably 200 years ago, 100 years ago, like nobody could fathom living in this. Yeah. Nobody could fathom living in what 2019 is. And yet here we are still doing it. So 100 years from now, like, I'm sure it'll be a shit show, but I suppose relatively speaking, the capacity for suffering is constantly just growing.
That is very
like
true.
There's no end to how far or how much people are willing to endure just to exist, it seems, which is kind of weird because like Is it a conscious suffering? Like, is it a latent suffering? I don't quite get it. Like, I think I'm making sense. Sorry.
No, you're good, dude. So, all right. This is going to be an introspective question here.
Mm-hmm.
We got scientists tell us there is no way the Earth is going to make it. We've got 5 years. I'm going to give us a really short time frame here. 5 years. Earth is fucked. There's no way humans can survive after that. What would you do in those 5 years? Like, what would you try to get done during that time?
You know, I'd probably move to an island. I'd get away from the city. I'd get away from like dense populations. I'd probably start painting. I don't know. That's yeah. I guess I'd do my best to just like whatever fantasy and whim I've ever had. Like, well, might as well.
Yeah, dude. The first thing that came to mind would be traveling. Like, I would just get in my car and just drive.
Yeah, just leave. Like, yeah. Whatever concept of like obligation I had to where I live or what's around me, or I guess whatever I thought was like keeping me in one place, just throw it out. Just lose it.
When I was preparing for this interview, like I said, I wanted to ask a little bit about the theme of the album. At no point did I think that you and I would be talking about how fucked we are in the world, how screwed the world is.
Totally.
So shit, man. Yeah, the album, The Fig and the Wasp, came out in January. You got to recently play with Mortiis, and you got to recently play with Chasm. So for you, is there anything else coming up in the coming weeks, coming months for your musical projects?
I have a show tonight, actually. My friend Devin runs a experimental kind of weirdo electronic night at a bar in Echo Park. We've been friends for a while. We both, I think it was a couple times, we DJ'd at an after hours spot maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. And he asked me to come out a few weeks ago. I'll be doing that tonight. That's Triptronics for anybody that wants to stay hip every other Sunday. Little Joy. And then after that, I think there's nothing on the radar. I'm just trying to work on new material, kind of see what sticks. There's a split, perhaps collaboration record in the works right now. I can't say too much about it until I talk to some people. But yeah, I think 2019 still holds some cool secrets.
Nice, man. Well, I hope for your music's sake, the world doesn't come to go to shit by the end of 2019.
Yeah, I mean, if it does, it's fine. But yeah, I feel you.
What have you been listening to lately?
Oh man, what have I been listening to? There's a mixtape by a guy called Rabbit that came out, I think it was the end of last year. It's called The Dope Show. It's like a chopped and screwed. I don't know if there's a tape or if there's a record, but I've got the digital. What's on there? It's chopped and screwed versions of like Rihanna and Lana Del Rey and Tirza. There's like an Aphex Twin Lil Boosie mashup on there. That's one of the wildest things I've ever heard. I think that's become my go-to record of 2019. Like, perhaps it'll make my year-end list. I think it has already. And besides that, I've listened to I kind of just listened to a lot of black metal, to be honest.
I was talking about this in my last interview. Yeah. Like, when it comes to black metal, I feel like it's very hard for me to find black metal bands that I like, because everything has to be absolutely perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm always in the hunt for black metal bands.
And it's such an oversaturated genre where like the least amount of effort and like the least interesting shit is, I guess, the most prevalent, it seems, or at least the most abundant. I would say, I don't know if I've listened to much of it lately, but anything that's coming out of Iceland right now is just phenomenal. Specifically, Mistherming, Nadra, Warmlust, I think it's pronounced Rebirth of Nefast or Nephist, Sinmara. It's really kind of a hotbed for really good shit. I think France always does it right. Like, I've never heard a band from France I didn't like. What else? Yeah, I'll always go back to stuff like William Basinski. I'll always go back to stuff like Godspeed You Black Emperor, Aphex Twin, Boards of Canada.
Dude, Godspeed is so good.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen them play before?
Yeah, I saw them in Hollywood a couple years ago, and it was like one of the most heartbreaking things I'd ever seen.
I've only got to see them twice. I saw them a few years ago, and then I saw them, I think it was within like the last 6 months, and both times they were absolutely freaking incredible.
Yeah, they're a great band. I think another record I keep going back to it's called Eroded Corridors of Being by Spectral Voice. It's kind of like a Black Death doom metal thing, I guess. I don't know. I don't like a lot of doom metal and I don't like a lot of death metal, but this one definitely sticks. I've listened to it way too many times.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet, man. I got a good number of suggestions from you, so thanks, man.
Cool.
And so after today, what's the best way for folks to keep up with what you're working on, the music that you're releasing?
Follow the Instagram. I really don't like Facebook, but I'll try and make an effort to post stuff there. Yeah, keep an eye out on Dune Alter, the label I'm on. He's got a couple cool things coming out later this year. And that's kind of it.
Sweet, man.
Yeah.
Well, Cameron, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, man.
Like
thank
I said,
you.
I totally enjoy having like existential, philosophical, sociological conversations. Yeah. And I did not anticipate you and I talking about the world ending. So
I'm glad,
shit, man.
I'm glad we did.
And there it is, my friends. That's my conversation with Cameron Carlin. So a couple of things that I thought super interesting. So the fact that Cameron got to play with the Black Mare and had to learn the songs that he would be playing in 3 weeks, that blows my goddamn mind, man. That straight up, I could hardly learn how to play music now, and having to learn a full set of music in 3 weeks so that I could feel comfortable enough to perform it in front of a crowd of individuals, holy shit. That's pretty awesome. And I think that just goes to show you the kind of musician that Cameron is. I also enjoyed our conversation about how fucked the planet is, which kind of goes hand in hand with what I was talking about with Game of Thrones. We're so doomed. We're so fucked. But yeah, I enjoyed speaking to Cameron about that. If you haven't listened to Wilshire Corridor, get your ass on that. Give it a listen. It's such a solid release. Really enjoyable. I'll make sure to add links in the show notes to how you can check out the album, how you could give it a listen. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the cassette for The Fig and the Wasp is sold out, but I will add a link in the show notes to how you could peep it on Dune Alter's site so that if you want to get it, hopefully at some point you could cop it. And then I'll add links in the show notes to how you could follow Cameron, how you could follow Wilshire Corridor, how you could stay up to date with everything that he's got going on and everything going on with Wilshire Corridor. As always, guys, follow the show, subscribe. You guys are the shit. You're awesome as hell. I don't have to tell you, you know the drill. Get out there, create something cool. I will see you all next time.